What up? What up? Welcome to episode 160 of Keep the Kayfabe. I'm Mike, sitting here with my boys, ready to talk some wrestling. We have a very special episode. We are making this not only an audio episode, but also a visual episode. So yes, I am as good looking as I sound. If you're a long-time listener, this is what I look like, and you're welcome. We are in full swing with NHL playoffs. We are in full swing with NBA playoffs. Baseball season's going. It's getting a little warmer out. But you know what else is heating up? The drama in AEW. And there's some pretty crazy storylines going on. We have Kenny Omega possibly coming back. Tony Khan is doing some crazy stuff with Jack Perry coming back. We're going to get to all of it because there's a lot to break down. But before we do, let's introduce the boys real quick. He's over in Glendale sporting some very new spectacles. And that's why he keeps it regal. Mr. Steve Grobschmidt. What up, Grabby?
What I'd like to have right now is for all you fat, out of shape, keep the kayfabe camel toes, keep the noise down while I take my robe off and show the ladies and the men what a really sexy man looks like. Hit the music.
Did he really say camel toes back then?
No,
just
I had to get something that it was alliteration with keep the kayfabe.
Dude, that was a nice little insert there, my friend.
Let's keep your clothes on for this
Yeah,
episode.
if this wasn't a video podcast, I would have went forward with it. But
well, for us, it's called the Moose Knuckle. But who's counting? Let's go over to Ohio, my guy. He's got the golden pipes. He's from Ohio, Mr. Gary Williams. What up, Gary? How are you?
I think I'm cute. I got gold medals. I got the moves that make them all tap out. The angle slam. The ankle lock. Marty Jannetty. He still can't walk. I'm just a sexy Kurt. Sexy Kurt. I'll make your ankle hurt. Ankle hurt.
was that a real thing?
It was a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
This is real. Sexy Kurt was real. I just saw something pop up online where there's a slight rumor that Kurt Angle was going to come back and manage Chad Gable, who's turned heel again. Oh gosh, that would be so great.
That would have been brilliant.
Yeah, he's a one of a kind, that Kurt Angle. So I thought I'd break him out for our episode tonight.
That was really good, Gary, and I do remember that distinctly. And shout out to our friend of the channel, Marty Jannetty.
I mean, he's always with us.
They said Kurt Angle really broke out of his shell because, you know, he was taking the business so seriously, and everybody in all the interviews always say that Kurt Angle just picked up on the business faster than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he's a gold medalist, but I mean, sports entertainment, it's a whole nother animal. But for, you know, legends like The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, all these dudes, they're like, Kurt was the man. And then when he got it down, he had some fun, and then basically dropped in so many sound bites for WWE, and he didn't even come up through the ranks. He's a really influential wrestler in the business.
One of a kind.
Yeah, he's very brilliant, very witty. So I mean, yeah, really good.
Pittsburgh's finest. All right, let's go over to Bayview. He is a man that keeps shit freshly squeezed, but he's also our friendly neighborhood Val Venus. Val, how are you this evening, guy?
Hello, ladies. The big Val Boski's here tonight on video. And thankfully, and as many of you ladies know, it's not the big Val Boski's first time on video. Just check out my classic from 1998, Saving Ryan's Privates.
Yeah.
That was a line of his, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
He was dating. So I think the gimmick at the time was he was courting, we'll call it, Ken Shamrock's sister, which was Ryan Shamrock.
Oh,
so the name of the video they had was Saving Ryan's Privates, and it was
Nice.
as a kid, I didn't get it, but I knew enough to know I probably shouldn't be watching this right now. And as a nearly 40-year-old man, I still feel that way sometimes.
Yeah, when porno shops were really hot in the 90s, there was some really good names to some movies remember Mr. Holland's Opus, Mr. Holland's Orgy, or something like that? And, I mean, there was just limitless creativity back then. So
I'm a little older,
sorry,
so
I
I remember
I was
I'm
going
a,
to say we have Ravishing Rick Rude on. We got Kurt Angle here tonight. We've got Val Venus here tonight. I
we
mean,
got them all.
we got an all-star crew.
Yeah, what were you saying, Steve? You're a little older?
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm a little older here, and I remember seeing like porn movie names like in a magazine that was like Gonad the Barbarian instead of Conan the
Oh.
Barbarian.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's a thing. It's
It is a
What a-
thing.
limitless
what a wonder-
creativity.
What a
Whatever
wonderful topic
gets
for
it
our
off the
first.
shelves.
What a
First
wonderful
video.
topic for our very first video.
I'm also realizing,
Yeah.
being it's our first video, I didn't have any visual element to that Val Venus intro, so it's something to work on for future episodes.
That's all right.
That would be good.
You know,
I'm sure our listeners and viewers would want to see that.
you want to see enhanced video? Keep watching.
Yes, we're just getting it dialed here on Keep the Kayfabe, so we appreciate you tuning in and listening. And, there is a lot of good stuff happening on video. And it's Tony Khan getting involved kind of on screen now rather than behind, booking the shows and in the gorilla position. He's getting on screen. He's creating some storylines, and there's a lot of landscape here to play in. And the boys here are going to break it down. And Steve kind of talked about it a little bit prior to the show to get me up to speed. But Steve, did you want to enlighten the listeners in case they're a little behind on what Tony's up to these days?
Yeah, it goes like this. I don't know how far back we want to go, but Jack Perry, he had the big row with CM Punk last year at All Out, right? And it was over the whole glass thing, and then that's what CM Punk like flipped his gourd and like went nuts, and then kind of was the end of his second run with AEW. And then Jack Perry, at least on AEW television, hadn't been seen since. I think he was suspended, but then honestly, we'll never know how long the suspension is because I think they probably were working on a story at some point to keep him gone for a while. He showed up in New Japan with kind of an edgier gimmick. Did he start in Japan, the scapegoat gimmick, I believe?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was in New
Yeah.
Japan.
So again, we fast forward to more recently. They show, the controversial. We talked about it on the show where the Young Bucks showed the video from All Out, which we debated about the merits of that. It didn't really show too much other than CM Punk shoving down Jack Perry and some other people getting involved. But and they made it part of the story. But of course, then you fast forward to Dynasty where the Bucks and FTR are in a bloody ladder match, and some guy in a mask comes running out of the crowd, and the announcers start acting like it's a fan. But he throws, I don't remember which FTR member off the ladder. And then
I think it was
Dax, and then they grab him and take the mask off, and it's a grinning Jack Perry, and then the Young Bucks win the titles. And then we fast forward to last week's Dynamite, where they start hinting that Jack Perry wants to have an audience with Tony Khan to get his job back, because also when he was in Japan, he ripped up his AEW contract. So then they have the big thing at the end of the show where Jack Perry comes out, talks about how much he loves AEW and everything he's done for it, is all best of intentions for the company, very baby face promo. And he calls out Tony Khan, who sheepishly comes out, the nerd that he is, kind of, waving, smiling. And then Jack Perry pronounces his love again, and Tony's eating it up, and then Tony's clapping, and then they give a big hug, and then just as the camera shows, Jack Perry turns to the camera, grins, and then he holds up Tony Khan's hand, and then gut punches him, knocks him down, and then the Bucks come out like, "Oh, what the hell did you do?" with Okada. And then they proceed to set him up for where they do their spike pile driver, where one of them does like a spin, and then they spike him. The Meltzer driver. And Tony Khan is completely laid out. The Elite is parading around. And then the next day at the NFL draft, Tony Khan is wearing a neck brace, or not the next day, but days later, he's wearing a neck brace, which I think is fantastic because he's like selling it in a real sports event. And then also Kenny Omega, who's also an EVP. It was announced as he's coming back next week to talk or do whatever. So that's our backdrop.
Well, a little extra cherry on top of that Sunday is that they did make this statement. Tony Khan has, from AEW directly, Tony Khan suffered multiple head and neck injuries. And he's very blessed and very happy to still be able to work. And of course, he'll be in Jacksonville during the draft. However, the doctors have advised Tony that he cannot travel. So therefore, while he is on the mend, he'll be running the company from a remote location.
Wow, that is a key distinction.
This whole thing is so. Well, I guess I'll give my thoughts on it. The whole situation is so ridiculous for a number of reasons. I mean, if you're listening to this and just heard Steve and Gary's thoughts on it and kind of recap of what happened, I mean, that tells the whole story right there. I think for me as a fan of AEW, just going back to earlier in this past week's episode, the Bucks, Jack Perry, all these guys are in Tony talk to Tony about why is Jack here, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we assume that as fans, right? But then one of the Jackson brothers, as they're walking out, says to Alex Marvez, we'll be answering this in the ring and talking to Tony Khan in the ring tonight. That, to me, wasn't necessarily a red flag, but it definitely told me that something big was coming, because this is the first time that Tony Khan has appeared on AEW television. And, you know, we're coming up on 5 years worth of Dynamite. So right away, I'm thinking, okay, something big is going to happen here.
Yeah, he's come out to like announce events, but never in a storyline, really.
Right.
No.
And we've seen Vince McMahon,
and his dad showed up.
Oh,
His
yeah.
dad showed up on TV, which was even crazier.
And we've seen Vince McMahon come out in years past, and clearly he's worked matches, and maybe not in recent years, but back in the day, he could at least take a little bit of a bump. I think Tony is still working on that part of it. But yeah, the whole situation was just odd. And I think any other week, I think this might have worked. I think given the timing with how AEW's been handling the whole situation with CM Punk lately, it feels like they just keep doubling down on all these allegations that CM Punk has made against AEW in the time he spent there. So to me, the whole thing just feels desperate more than anything else, and almost like a car crash that you just can't look away from. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's kind of how I came away from all this.
Yeah, I'm really torn because, like, as an old school wrestling fan, you know, it's always, I love a little comedy. And unfortunately, I felt like this was a comedy bit more than anything, which it wasn't meant to be. Or maybe it was, I don't know. I mean, it was just awful the way Perry hit him in the gut with a microphone, and he just, the way he sold. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme, I don't think Tony Khan, I think he probably couldn't take a gut punch like that anyway. So it was all good that way. But this has really been, well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's been completely polarizing in terms of Eric Bischoff, Jim Cornette, even Kevin Nash trash. Viewership was way down in the 600s for that episode. I mean, and
that segment was up though, just so you know.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But I mean, but with all things being considered, like, the thing that I'm really struggling with is where in the hell do they go from here? Because they fired Punk legitimately. So, like, how does this happen without? And these guys are not the NWO. Like, they're not like Hogan and Nash and Hall. Like, they don't have that cachet. So it's kind of like, what, you know, I literally have been trying to think about this since we decided to do this episode tonight. What is he going to do? And I honestly, there is nothing really good I can think of, right? Because, like, what do you do? You
I have one theory.
Go ahead, because help me out even.
So this is, I mean, again, it's not a well thought out theory, but it's at least logical. Okay. Real life EVPs are the Young Bucks, and they're pulling this power play. They fired Kenny Omega from the Elite. They suspended indefinitely Hangman Adam Page, who are two other EVPs. So I think that's what they're going to position as like a power struggle, 2 and 2. I don't think there's any more EVPs anymore. Obviously, Cody's not coming back. So I think that's going to be the play, is that there's going to, and how that manifests, I mean, I assume it's going to be in the ring, but I think Kenny Omega and Hangman Page assert their equal leadership to fight them, and that's where you go with this. It's the only thing I can think of. I mean, it makes sense, right?
It actually, now that you mention it, that does, like, and if it went that way, I'd give them a lot of credit that they actually had a long-term plan or some semblance of a plan
Yeah.
when they fired those guys and did
I
all that stuff.
do think that was part of the plan. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I figured
Wow,
Kenny would
what do
come
you
back.
think?
Kenny's going to be a baby face for life because he almost
Yeah.
died. They're not going to bring him back as a heel.
No.
I will
True.
say, since I'm rambling here, I agree with most of what you guys are saying. I don't know that this is a winner or not. I will say one positive is Jack Perry. The fans seem to be embracing completely. I mean, he got a big pop. So if their attempt to have him over by coming back this way, so far that's working. But I just hope Tony Khan stays the hell off camera, and it looks like he's going to do that. I do agree. I don't like agreeing with Eric Bischoff, but I do agree that Tony Khan not saying a word was the best thing for this too, because he's just so damn awkward.
True.
But yeah, I don't know.
He is really awkward when you go to live events and he's like, "Do you know you're the greatest?" He just
Yeah.
But it does. To some degree, this elevation of Jack Perry has been huge, and I agree, and I think that was I think it was pretty well done, all things considered. The question will just beg itself is going forward now, will the fans how will they react to these guys? Because they're so quasi tweener heel baby faces, always have been. So the question is, how much do they embrace Jack Perry, and then how does Jack Perry go from here? But he's going against Swerve, so right off the bat, I mean, Swerve kind of called him out on Collision, and so like all of a sudden you're like, okay, well there's just a clear distinction there.
I guess one more thing that I'm predicting maybe that would make sense at this point would be, you got to even out the odds. You got Okada, Perry, and the Young Bucks. Maybe Hangman and Omega bring in the FTR, and then there's your 4-on-4. And then the fans will cheer for both teams because Kenny's going to get a monster pop because he's, Kenny, and he's been sick. Hangman, for whatever reason, I bitch about him all the time, but he still gets monster pop. So I don't know. I think it's a winning feud in the ring. That's probably the best outcome we can hope for, is that we get like all these crazy EVP versus EVP matches.
No, I was just about to add, I could definitely see it playing out that way. What I still don't understand is why take out Tony Khan on screen. I feel like there's a lot of other ways they could have arrived at this EVP warfare angle, if that's ultimately the angle they're going for. So I'm going to actually spin it back around. So Mike, I know when we kick this off, you're kind of learning about this, just hearing us talk about it. But I guess even just based on the little bit that you've heard, and obviously your treasure trove of pro wrestling knowledge, what are your thoughts on this? Like, how do you feel like you would book this?
Well, I think I'll just take it center back on Tony Khan as the man, how you guys just said he's a little awkward and stuff. He might even be a little bit on the spectrum, to be quite honest with you. I think I think he's living out his dream and he does a really great job. But I mean, when you have a lot of money, you can kind of do whatever you want. And that's why it was like the biggest power stroke to wear a neck brace to the NFL draft, which is like what everybody freaks out about just for a little bit of attention. So I don't think he wants to really TV if he was going to put a neck brace on when he is at the draft. He kind of wants it. And I can see him booking himself more into things, especially if the ratings get up again. Because I don't know. I think AEW has been around long enough, and there's been enough drama, and they've actually, like, for better of 2 years, they were pretty squeaky clean. There was like, this place is a fucking utopia for wrestling. It's so supportive. Everybody wants to help each other. There's no backstabbing. Well, as time goes by, it's going to get a little polluted if you're buzzing around.
Humans be humans. Yeah.
Word up. So I think maybe again, if you go to the draft doing a work like that, it seems like you kind of want it more. So I don't know how the story is actually going to play out, but I don't think this is going to be the last we see of Tony Khan on TV doing something weird.
I really, 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 really hope you're wrong on that, because he is not good at it. I'm going to say...
Am I wrong?
Again,
when am I wrong?
Not often.
No, you are right very often. One of the other potential down the road outcomes that would be at least that would make some sense is if maybe when they decided to bring Blood and Guts in for 2024, that they have something on the line for that, because I think that's been
Yeah.
something that's been kind of missing in those Blood and
Control
Guts
of the
matches. Like,
company.
yeah, control of the company, something like that would be kind of a cool way of kind of like bringing some of this full circle a little bit. But boy, I can't. I mean, you want to talk about a broken record? I mean, McMahon at least had a personality. Bischoff was kind of a douche,
He had a
but at least
personality.
he had a personality. But Tony Khan, like, ugh, no, please, God, no.
I really
Like,
don't feel he's going to. I feel like he's gonna. This is set up for the EVPs to fight it out.
I hope you're right.
If Chris Jericho
and I
was
really
more
hope-
popular right now, I think Tony Khan would probably gain confidence from Chris Jericho. But since Chris Jericho isn't really that great right now in the eyes of the fans, yeah, I don't know. They're kind of floundering a little bit. And especially when your booker is going on TV, that's not the greatest sign. Vince McMahon actually went on TV to kind of save the company during the Monday Night Wars to spark that Stone Cold Steve Austin thing, to give people fantasies of like kicking the shit out of their boss. So he's like, I'll do it. So he kind of put the company on his back and did it. Right now, Tony doesn't, like you guys said, doesn't really have the charisma to do that. And it's not believable.
And there's not a Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No.
And it's been done.
There isn't a face that right now could carry that for him or rise up for the company against these guys. You know, I mean, like,
I think Kenny's the best shot.
Could Kenny maybe, but you know, how far away is he from wrestling? I mean,
well, that we don't know. Yeah, that's a great question. I just painted this whole picture of a 4-on-4 thing. I guess we'll find out this week what shape he's in.
And if you think about this whole situation, you guys bring up a couple good points. Austin McMahon, Gary, just like you said, McMahon had a personality. I mean, we found out in later years what it was, but albeit he had a personality. Right.
That'll be another show we'll do some other time.
And given Austin and how strong he was as an on-screen persona, I mean, one of the biggest baby faces of all time. You don't have that in AEW right now. So, you know, we mentioned guys like Kenny Omega and stuff. Yeah, Kenny Omega is one of the best ever in the ring, but he's awkward on the microphone, as is Tony. You can't put those guys in a similar feud, kind of saying, okay, these are two of AEW's biggest people, and have it, you know, create that same level of magic. And in fact, I'm hard-pressed to figure out who in AEW could do something like that, with Tony Khan, especially as being the on-screen authority figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess my final thought on all this is that
MJF, but again, how far away is he from
just had surgery,
back?
I think.
Yeah. So, you know, like those are MJF has the cachet, right? Like he could do something like that. But again, you know, like they're just missing that major force. I mean, they've got a lot of heels working, but just, you know, I don't know. I don't know, Matt. Like I fear I'm probably with you more on this. Steve, you have some optimism. I'm hoping
it's too early to tell.
It works well, but
yeah,
I will give them this credit. For the first time in a long time, the show after the pay-per-view, you actually have an idea what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah.
If you go back in time, almost hardly any pay-per-views, it was just this kind of like blah, of just a hodgepodge of things for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden they got it going. But this one, right out of the gate, they were like, boom, they're just setting things up. So I'll give the new, I think there's a new writer, a female writer that used to work for WWE. I'll give her some credit. Like, she's at least kind of trying to there's a pretty cool storyline with Trent going on right now. I kind of like where Swerve is going. You know, there's some good stuff with Bullet Club, you know, like I do think that there's some things in the works, but this one has got me scratching whatever hair is left on my head. And as you can see, not very much.
Yes, now people can see.
I agree. What do you think Tony Khan specifically, though, is going to do this week, Wednesday on Dynamite? Does he come out and reprimand the Young Bucks? Can he? It's just such an awkward
He's not
situation.
traveling, he said.
True, but like you have to believe he's got to
On
respond
camera, you mean?
in one way or another. Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna make the prediction right now. We will not see him, and that's honestly just my remaining wishful thinking on AEW that they have to not make him a TV character. They cannot, and I just really hope he's at least self-aware enough to not put himself out there. So that's my hope, and I'm gonna say he doesn't show up. Kenny
I completely
talks for
agree,
him.
but like, does that make him look weak by not doing that?
He's a nerdy little owner.
I mean,
so yeah,
this
but we don't care.
This is truly is kind of a conundrum because like you got to do something. I mean, you just went through this whole thing about firing CM Punk for putting his hands on Jack Perry and then yelling at Tony Khan, let alone now having this overt act. But then like how do you do that to the tag champs right now, and where does that go? And it feels like it's interesting the timing of the way they said, oh, he's going to be running the company from a private location for the next little bit. Gives you some sense that he's going to disappear for a little while, and then all of a sudden something's going to formulate. But it does seem really wonky that if they don't do something on Dynamite this week, it's so clearly either the EVPs are going to rise up and say, oh, we're in charge and here's how it's going to go. But again, that's a shtick that's been done before. So I sure hope they're going to be more creative than that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I don't know if the time is right for him to come out right after all this. I'm kind of with Steve. I don't think they do. But we shall see. Wednesday is coming.
They need a superhero. They need the guy with a good calling card. They need somebody with, some things behind him.
Some attributes.
Attributes, yeah. But what kind of attributes?
They need a guy with attributes. Mike, who could they call on?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's out there. She even could be out there, for Christ's sake. But I just know when I move through the world and I speak to people and I meet with people and I try to spread the message of wrestling out in the world, I just like to stick to these three things.
What are those?
That is stay humble, stay hungry, and stay hard.
Oh, Triple H. Oh.